Good evening and welcome to Say Brother. As we approach the close of this decade, referred to by many as the Women's Decade, we look ahead to troubled times by racial conflict, international strife, and disintegration of old values. Tonight, we will be discussing the direction, the skills, and the commitment necessary for us as women to take in the continued struggle of making life just a little bit better for our families and our communities. I am pleased to have so many outstanding women from Boston's third world community here in our studio audience to welcome with me our guest of honor, a woman whose achievements are numerous and who exemplifies the positive qualities many of us hold as personal goals. I am honored to introduce Marcia Ann Gillespie, Editor-in-Chief of Essence Magazine. Welcome to Say Brother.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
It's great to have all of you here with us too in our audience, and soon I'm going to give you all an opportunity to have some dialogue with Marcia. I'm sure it's a treat for all of you as well as it is for myself. Marcia, I'd like to talk to you first about your success. You've been with Essence Magazine about 8.5 years or so?
Yes.
Right. That's a long, long time. What do you attribute that success of the magazine as well as yourself to?
You know, you told me you were going to ask me this question. I've been trying to come up with an answer. I think the magazine has taken off in the last several years because we've really worked at becoming a better service magazine for our readership and giving more substantive information and also talking to women as whole human beings and not as pieces and parts. My success, you know, that's a strange one because I haven't quite decided if I feel successful yet in my life. Do you know what I mean? I enjoy the work that I do, and I'm pleased that I've gotten that opportunity to do that. And I think the magazine has helped me grow, so that it would be back and forth. But success is such a strange word, in this country, that it's like I'm finding that I'm still trying to define it for me. If that makes sense.
Yeah. You mentioned in one of your editorials, in essence, that black magazines, newspapers, and the like, without them we could not sing our own song, talk about our own problems and dreams. Would you elaborate further on that for us, just to tell us your thinking behind that?
Well, you know, my feeling is if you're anything other than white, Anglo-Saxon, and Protestant, or trying hard to be same, it's very lonely in a society for you. Because there's so few voices and images that reflect who you are. That's been especially true being black in this country. What we wanted to do, with Essence was to give black women other images that we are creating about ourselves, because too often we as women we're being told what we were by whites, by men, by others. And it's important that we begin now to say who we are for ourselves,
I have to keep going back to being with Essence for such a long period of time. I've been with Say Brother for a long period of time, and I know why I've stayed here that long. Do you look at Essence as a possible oasis in the desert?
For me?
For you?
For most of the time, it has been, in the sense that I never could have been an editor-in-chief any place else that I know of. So Essence has given me an opportunity to find the skills I didn't know I had, to find out parts of myself I didn't know were there. At the same time, it's also given me another kind of opportunity, which is that I enjoy what I do, and I'd always like to be affiliated with Essence in some way. But now, suddenly I'm looking at all these other little mountains that I'd like to kind of go out and climb. So then on another level, I guess it's kind of given me another kind of support system, to kind of see what else I can do, But it'll always be a special place. It's like your baby, It's been like my baby these last 8 years or so.
You mentioned about the society in general and men in particular not allowing us or preventing us from getting to a certain place. Now the publisher of the magazine is a man. How has that affected your own editing? How has it affected your life personally? How has it affected you professionally?
Well, I think that the publisher and I have worked out a really good relationship, which has been based on the fact that for, I'd say, the first 3 years, we fought a great deal of the time. We fought over things like, I was called on the carpet because I would come in mornings and not speak to everybody. And that was considered terrible, even though men can come in and not speak to everybody. So we fought on issues of sexism. We also fought on issues that deal very much with the way Americans perceive of creativity, and then how men perceive of creativity when it's a woman who's supposed to be creative, so that they felt they could always kind of pop in and talk to me no matter what I was doing. At the same time, I think we've both kind of grown and learned a lot from each other. I have great respect for him. I think he has great respect for me. And he's given me free rein in terms of I don't have to clear articles with them. I don't have to, you know, show him my editorials before they run. He does not see the issue until it's printed. So that in a working, you know, day-to-day working relationship, it's been all right. We are still different people. I mean, there's certain views I have about the world and about women that I don't think he totally shares or understands, but that's okay because that makes me rethink it and see if I can explain it better. But I've enjoyed the relationship. True, I mean, I think it would be nice if women's magazines were published by women and edited by women and, you know, the whole world were that way, but that's not the way the real world is. And also, I think what is important is that I think Ed would say this if he were here. He's been very lucky in the sense that few men get the opportunity to work with women as peers and to work in situations where women are really in charge of bringing home the bacon. And I think it's been a good experience for him and for the other men in the company.
You mentioned that he doesn't check your editorials. In reading your editorials over a period of time, one can very easily state, in spite of where they might be coming from politically, that you're very opinionated. And you make everyone know what your opinion is, and I've not seen an editorial where you went middle of the road. One of the things that stands out in my mind was the letters that were sent to you because of the interview you did with Michelle Wallace on her book, Black Macho and the Myth of the Superwoman. I would like first to commend you for publishing the letters that were sent to you that accused you of doing a hatchet job on her, that said that your comments were bitchy, that said also that it was one-sided, and a lot of other things that I'm sure you remember. Do I remember? One of the things I'd like to do, though, is to ask you to tell us some more about, for those of us who might have missed what you said, tell us why you had the negative feelings that you had about that book.
Okay. Before I do that, I have to say that one of the letters that we ran also said, and I dare you to print this letter, so I have to print it.
I love it.
I think that there are some things that are said in the book that are important and needed to be at least raised because they are issues that often get talked about with women just sitting in a room together. My problems with the book are that I think it should have been an I book. This is my experience. This is how I felt. This is how I see the world. Rather, it was this book that dealt with black people as if we were some monolithic whole. And that's something I just personally resent on any level. I also, as a black woman living this life, will not accept anyone calling me and my kind social and intellectual suicides. To say that completely wipes out a history of women and women's accomplishments. That it doesn't ring well. I also felt, which I said, that since a good part of the book was based on the 60s, that it seemed to me that the 60s is one of those great watershed periods in our history. And it's going to take decades for us to sort out all of the things that happened and that changed us, you know, during that time. And she did not look at the complexities of the period. And in not looking at the complexities, the kind of oversimplification of issues did herself and I think the book itself great damage. So I came away saying we need a lot more on the discussion of the relationships that we have between the sexes. We need a lot more done on the period that we call the 60s. I hope that this is not going to be the only thing, you know. So that's that. But I got killed.
I know you did.
Yeah.
But again, I have to commend you for being able to put it out there just like that, for your readers to read and for them to
Just
read.
react, yeah.
Right, read what happened to you for putting it out there.
Oh, yeah.
It happens to all of us.
I know.
I want to talk to you about Marcia Ann a little bit. What makes you you? In some of your articles that I read, I know that you had a family that was very warm and a tight unit, and they read a lot and taught you how to read, and you really had a very warm background and an intellectual background that helped you and stimulated you to do what you're doing now. Why don't you explain some of that background to us?
Well, I'm the youngest child of two, which means small family and spoiled. My sister is 9 years older than I am and lives in California. I grew up in a little town on Long Island, which was a little town then. It's now grown into one of those suburban commuting places. Small black community where everybody basically knew everybody else. I consider myself very lucky. I grew up in a household that was incredibly wealthy. No money, but in terms of the kinds of time and energy and ways I saw and had people interact with me.
You mentioned your grandmother. Was
Yeah,
she
she
somebody very
lived down the
special to you?
corner. She lived on the opposite corner. So my maternal grandmother, yes. Even more so, interestingly, as I grew older. I think that what often happens to us is that our childhoods have even greater impact on us as adults than they do when we're children. And as a result, I am one of those people who feels very spoiled with love. I grew up believing that though life could be rough, it was going to be a nice journey for me, you know. And I'm really very pleased about that because I don't think that you can ever be spoiled too much on levels like that. My parents are still alive, which I'm very pleased about, and they're good friends of mine, whom I owe a great deal to because I think they gave me a good grounding in, I guess I call it basic things about being human. Yeah, and caring.
Sounds really great.
Yeah, I feel very spoiled about it, you know. And I
comes-
think they're super people, so I like saying it. Their names are Charles and Ethel Gillespie.
Okay. What about your personal life now? Are you married? Are you getting married? Are you thinking about it? Is there a special person? We all want to know those things.
They say, how much can you tell without getting in trouble, right? No, I'm not married. No, I'm not thinking about being or getting married. There are a couple of special people. That's going to get me in trouble. I'm, you know, it's interesting. I've had a number of people ask me, you know, well, why are you single? Or why aren't you married? So I guess I might as well just want me to do that now?
Sure, you can do that.
I think like a lot of women, I started out with my little shopping list. You know how we all get that shopping list and we go through and you're supposed to do good, well, do good in school. That's the way I learned it. Do good in school, you're supposed to get a good job and you're supposed to get married. And I went through, and the first two kind of came real easily. And then there was this guy I had known, you know, since, whose parents were close to my parents, one of those. And when he said, do you wanna, I got so scared because no, I didn't. And also it began to hit me that I really didn't know who I was, and I couldn't really spend any time with another person. During my late 20s, I went through this terrible thing about everybody I know is getting married, and why aren't you doing it, and what's wrong with you? But I got over that. Again, because I had to accept the fact that I liked the idea of marriage, but I wasn't mature enough for the realities of it, because I wanted him to be perfect and not to have to do any work. And then the job became very important to me. You know, I'm one of those people, I believe in marriage. I think in part because my parents have been married almost 45 years, and they still get along really well.
That's fantastic.
Yet at the same time, I don't know if I'm a marrying person. I'm selfish. I like lots of people. I can never seem to narrow down on one. I also know there's certain things I need space. Who said that every woman needs a room of their own? I'm still building that
We
room
do.
of my
Yeah.
own.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Sometimes I think if I ever get married, it'll be when I'm older. Sometimes I think I might never, and that doesn't bother me either.
Mm-hmm.
I've been having a good time in my life.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
it comes through too.
You know,
Okay.
and yeah, I think it's been all right.
All right, great. Well, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a community calendar break and give all of you an opportunity to get revved up for some of the questions that are going to come from our ladies that we have here in the audience to Marcia Ann. So why don't you sit tight? We'll be back in 1 minute. That was very soothing music, wasn't it? Well, it set us up for what we're going to have for the rest of the show. We have some questions now from our audience. Our first question is going to come from Sarah Ting. Sarah, you have a question for Marcia Ann?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
You had mentioned it or brought it up earlier in your interview with her, and I thought it was a very good point, and that was the question about her success. What does she attribute it to? And I wanted to know also, do you use an internal value to evaluate your success, or do you use society's values? Because I think it's really important that you yourself feel a certain fulfillment and gratification from what you do and not necessarily seek the approval of everyone around you.
Okay, good question.
I agree with you. I started out thinking it was about everybody else because, I mean, I was a very other-directed little girl. Do you know what I mean? Which always thought that you were supposed to get the approval or the claps from other people. Getting the job as the editor-in-chief changed a lot of that for me because what began to happen, Sarah, was that people kept saying to me, look at what you're doing and aren't you, and you're so happy and you're so this, and I didn't feel that. You know, in fact, if anything, for the first couple of years, I felt nervous, scared to death, because I had this job that I said I wanted, that I thought was going to be the ne plus ultra, you know what I mean? And I was terrified. I was terrified that if someone came up and said, oh, hi, you're Marcia Gillespie, that maybe they didn't like me, but they liked, you know, this symbol. So that made me paranoid about my relationships with other people. I had to go into therapy to begin to sort out a lot of this for me. I'm not going to say to you that it's 100% today where it's about me, my own values. It's still sometimes a tug of war. It's still a tug of war. But more and more it is about me trying to figure out what it means to me. And what I found is, yes, I want to be good at what I do in terms of my work. But it's about me being good at what I do because I know it. Like, because nobody knows when you mess up better than you do. But there's some other things that I'm really about now. I mean, in terms of one of the things I had to look at is in my career moves, I lost some very real kinds of human connections, some friendships that I neglected, some ways I did not grow kind of spiritually for me. So that what, you know, the things that I've been now working on is building that back. The other thing is even getting the strength to walk away. I mean, I know I want to write. I want to write for me. Now I have to fight the instinct to write successful books that everybody's going to say, oh, that was wonderful, and they're going to be bestsellers, you know, but just write for me. So I'm getting up the strength now to do that for me. So it's still a tug, but that's what I'm trying for.
Okay. Yes.
I'm Mary Rose Escaleta. I'm very curious as to what you can recommend to women in order to prepare for a career. Like you are where you are now, but I'm sure it had involved a lot of preparation, you know, towards it and towards achieving the success that you see now. Would you recommend an education or being very serious about pursuing it?
Okay.
I mean,
Thank you.
those are the things that I would like to know, being a woman, what we can do in order to be ready for the opportunity in life. Do we just sit back?
Okay, before you answer that, let us just tell our television audience that the ladies that are sitting here are ladies that have, all of them, even the one who just spoke, I would consider have fairly high visibility. And so we're not trying to play a game on you. We did invite women that we thought had quite a bit of high visibility, that were professionals in many different areas, and that could interact with us on a level that we thought you might be able to appreciate. So I think that some of the questions that you hear are being asked with you in mind, so I hope that you appreciate it. Okay, Marcia.
Well, you know, Mary Rose, I'm a believer in education more just because it opens, I mean, it just opens our heads. I'm more to larger worlds and other thought systems, and that's good, just for growth. Whether one is going to be successful as a result of being educated can be kind of one of those catch-22s, maybe yes and maybe no. But because, you know, beyond all else, as women, we also know we're culture keepers. I think that, you know, the more we can put in here, the more we therefore push out in so many ways. I think that, you know, in terms of the work thing, there are two things I'd say that a lot of women have to be careful of today. One of which is the Peggy Principle. And I know that people talk about Peter, but there's going to be more talk about Peggy.
I love it.
Peggy Principle basically is that now, because we are, you know, becoming more visible, and because the, you know, the workforce is going to have to, you know, take us into consideration, we are often accelerated too fast. And as a result, we get put on very shaky ground, and we get set up almost to fail, and then they can say, oh, you see, women, you know, can't do it. We also push ourselves too hard, because we're in such a hurry to get there that we often, we don't understand why we can't leap over the table, and we're setting ourselves up. I mean, the thing I think I would say to women is, whatever it is you want to do, take it slow, because I don't want to see too many people have to go through the kind of agony I went. I got a job that I wanted. I was not truly prepared for it. I was lucky that I had the time, and fortunately, I guess my bosses were tired of hiring editor-in-chiefs at that point, to kind of grow to it. But that's a rough way to have to get into a work thing. And I think that as women, we need to maybe think more about, again, what's going to be our personal sense of success. You know, it might not be being the editor-in-chief or the president of the company. It might be on something that's not going to make the big dollar. You know, we don't want to end up doing it just the way men did, because then nothing really changes. I don't know if that answers your question, though.
Well, but you pointed out something which was very interesting to me, that women really are going to set the trend in the next decade, and we have to be very, very careful how we do it, or else we can make it so difficult for women.
Yeah, and I think what's even worse, or we can just end up being just like men. Oh, you know, not that, I mean, you know what I mean.
No, what do you mean? Gotta tell us.
I don't understand why it is that I don't want to see us become Brooks Brothers, buttoned down, uptight, overtense, too stressful, heart attack victims at 45, where we've become corporate women the way they've become corporate men. You know, I mean, like, there has to be a way that we can begin to make the workplace a more humane environment, because no corporation is more important than a person's family life, or their personal life, or their other kinds of needs. And I think it's going to be up to us to do it. It's like, as we move into the workforce, we should become more vocal about things like childcare. Like, what upsets me, I mean, we've been doing it on the sly at Essence. I hope nobody from the whatever it would be hears us in the city of New York. Why isn't it that in any workplace there's not a space for our children? I mean, we know how valuable we are in this workforce. And I think as we begin to move into decision-making roles, we've got to bring that other consciousness, because offices can be places for children. Workplaces, our children shouldn't be an isolate from us. I guess I think that we need to humane the system, you know, and if we're not going to humane the system, I'm not for us. Do you know what I mean? I'm not for us any more than I'm for them.
Excellent. Maybe I have another question. Okay, this side.
Hi, I'm Frida Rodriguez. And now that you mentioned children and how you felt as a child of being loved and rich in that love, and us as trendsetters for the future, how important it is for us to pinpoint certain aspects in child rearing in our communities, like to feel as good as you did, and maybe in my case as I did, as being a good person, loved, and that you could do anything even if there are problems out there, and that although you can get to a position and be shaken up like you did, and like it has happened to me also, what have I gotten into? In the long run, you feel so good about yourself that you stay there and you continue on.
It's true. You know, it's like, I don't know about the rest of you sisters, but I know that for me, like, the thing that is upsetting me the most right now as we move into the 80s is this whole thing of teenage pregnancies. Because I feel like somehow or the other we've failed. You know, I mean, like, we've failed our sisters, these little girls, they could be our daughters, our little sisters, who at this stage in their lives are making these no choices, you know, are just, and it says to me that somehow or the other we haven't been there for them. Do you know what I mean? And I'm frightened by it because I can see all the consequences that it's going to have, you know, on us all. And I know, like, in the magazine, we're working on, you know, a number of articles on it because I think we all know something's got to be done. And I think we also know whatever it is going to have to come from us, you know, because these girls aren't feeling good about themselves. I don't know how we pass it on, but we have to.
Can I say something else on that?
Yes.
Mentioning the fact that you aren't married or have children at all, I would like to mention the fact that I have a daughter myself, and being in a position where I am coming into the professional field, it's very scary. I look down at her and see what's going to happen to her, and it adds on to the roles that you have. And being a boss, being a daughter, being a friend, being a mother, all at the same time, I think that something has to be done to, like you say, pace ourselves down and maybe help each other and get together and share how we'd feel as we come along and deal with all these roles at the same time.
You know what I think is interesting? It's just that, you know, here we all are, and for most of us, we're leading the kinds of lives that our mamas didn't even, I mean, it wasn't even part of their thinking.
I know. Yeah.
And it's like, you know, it's like creating a new world. And it's really hard for us because we know that there's some parts of being traditional women and traditional women within the context of our cultures that we want to hold on to. Yet it's got to expand for all the things that, you know, like we know we need for now. And I think what's going to be really important is when I say first peoples, because I don't like the term third world, because we come from first peoples cultures, you know. We just have to, we need to share more because our cultures have a lot of things that are similar. Do you know what I mean? And all the conversations have always been about black and white, or white and this, and not enough about first peoples. We women, you know, sharing what our cultures were like and looking for answers because we know that we come out of more humane environments than the ones that we're getting ready to go into, you know? I think that could be really important.
It makes me think about my mother and our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers. They worked hard, however, though they're not living this kind of life. I don't know that they'd want to. And they worked very hard for us. They've died for us. And the fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers, too. They've set it up so that we could vote. It makes me think of one of your articles about the fact that there's such great apathy with us and lack of vigilance, you know, in terms of not getting out there and doing the things we need to do to continue the struggle. Do you think that we really took one step forward and fell two back?
Yeah. Well, I go back and forth, Barbara. You know, depending on which way I woke up in the morning, almost. On some levels, I guess what upsets me most is that we seem to be putting our consciousness up on the shelf to kind of make, you know, kind of the decisions that are most expedient for now. The getting ahead, the career, the whatever. I think, though, the 80s is going to knock us all back, kind of put things back into perspective, because I'm one of those people who thinks it's going to get really, really bad. I mean, really bad, and I think that's a good thing, because I think it has to get a lot worse before we really move to make it better. Do you know? It's like, so that we understand it doesn't matter if you've got a college education, that you're not going to be any better off than the poorest person on the block unless you begin to make a difference in that person's life. Do you know? I know I sound so naive, But I really,
No, you
I
don't.
can't get up in the morning unless I really do believe it's, you know, eventually it's going to get better. But I think this country is going to get really worse. I think we're going to see much worse racism. I think we're going to see, you know, a greater reaction from men about these, what do these women want? I think we're going to, you know, we're going to see more and more problems in our educational system. I think our children are really going to give us some real grief, because on lots of levels we've failed them. But I think what it's really going to do, I mean, it's going to force us to really make a stand and really tighten up our acts and stop putting these little Band-Aids on the problem, because the Band-Aids don't work. And I think it's going to be up to us women to make the change. I'm a female chauvinist. I really do.
Okay, right in the front.
My name is Gwen Crockett. I've been listening to the past two comments that you made, and I read something recently that relates directly to what you just said, and that historically our fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers, they were strong because they had to struggle harder. Now, the more they struggled, the easier they made it for future generations. So those future generations didn't have to struggle that much, so they're weaker. And I think we're going to go through what you just said. This country is going to go down even farther before it goes up, because the generations that are coming now are a lot weaker than the ones that came before us.
But you see, what I think is, it's even, you see, I mean, not even just thinking about this country anymore. See, because I'm hoping that I'm going to live to the year 2000 and then some, because I've always thought it was something magic about a new century, you know, maybe everything would just get better automatically. It's like, you know, it's about, we live in the world. I happen to be in America. You know, we happen to be here, but we live in the world. And it's not going to matter any if this country's all right if the rest of the world isn't. And I think that's what's so incredible about being alive now. Because you turn on television and you're 1 second in Iran and the next second we're looking, you know, Cambodia, and we can't escape the fact that this is this little place. I think it's going to get worse because this system doesn't work, and because it's inhumane, and because it's based on greed, and it's based on some few people having it all while most people don't. And I think that's why it's got to go down, because we can't be this greedy and this selfish, and we can't accept the idea of children dropping dead on television in front of our eyes in Cambodia and not feel it's vulgar, it's obscene, the obscenity of it. I mean, it's because this system is wrong. That's why it's got, I mean, we got to change.
Cynthia.
My name is Cynthia Lewis, and several issues ago, Essence did articles about the male-female, black male-female relationship. And Michelle Wallace mentions in her book that there was or is a gulf between black men and women. Do you believe this is true?
I think we got some problems, but I think men and women in this society got some problems. I think that this society, you know, I said this earlier in a speech that I did today, change makes people crazy. This is a society that's gone through so much change, you know, the inflation, energy crisis, President Carter, Iran, you know, women's rights, black people, you know, all these things making people crazy. And as a result, we know relationships are dicey right now. You know, I always remember, what was that television show, Barbara? An American Family, when they did that cinema verite with the Loud family. Now that told me that white Americans were not exactly living Ozzie and Harriet lives either. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
What I think begins to happen, though, is this. By putting all this attention now on what's wrong with black relationships, Newsweek does a thing, everybody's talking about, it's a good way to take the pressure off everybody else. See, we're all right, it's just those people who are terrible. Yeah, there's some problems. I'm not going to, and they're compounded by racism and oppression and all the other isms that we know are ugly. But I still think that we're not in as bad shape as media is trying to take out. Because I think what we do is we don't look at what we're up against. Because if we judged it by what we're up against, the mere fact that we can even spend 20 minutes in a room together and not make war all the time tells me that we're okay. Okay? I think that we really will have to work out some things. I think that black women are going to have to stop treating black men as if they were endangered species, because I think that's part of what makes it a little dicey. I think black women are also going to have to stop making it all his fault, because we have to admit to the fact that, you know, everything's a two-way street, and oppression makes everybody crazy. And I think we also need to do is just take the pressure off of our relationships, because we still are defining relationships in white American terms. And how the hell can we use them as the yardstick for what our relationship should be? I mean, we can't. We need to really figure out some redefinition of what relationships ought to be. Because theirs don't work, and they definitely aren't going to work for us because we don't even come out of that culture. You know, no, there's not here.
Okay. Yes, Consuelo.
Okay, I'm Consuelo Thornell. I'm with the Minority Women Employment Program here in Boston. Hi. I agree with you, and I think that along that same vein, I know that as a Latina, and I know that my Asian sisters alongside of me would agree with me that when you begin to look at relationships, male-female relationships, and you look at us as first people, and the problems that society has impacted on us, white society has impacted on us, of course there's going to be stress, all types of stress. Stress in terms of our roles. Now here we are, we're supposed to be so-called leaders. I'm sure that if you asked each one of us if we thought we were leaders, we'd all tell you no. You know, I do not see myself as a leader. I see myself as growing up. And hopefully as I grow up, I sort of drag my husband along with me. And he sort of drags me along with him, and sometimes I'm behind him, and sometimes I'm beside him, and sometimes I'm in front of him. And I think that as a woman, and in this case as a first woman, as you say, I accept that challenge. And to sort of piggyback on something that you said a while ago about not being sure about where you wanted to be, whether you wanted to be married or not, maybe when you're older or whatever, I can just sort of share with you that I consider myself extremely greedy, okay? I want to be a successful businesswoman. I want to be a successful mother. I want to be a successful individual in terms of the community, a successful wife, a successful lover. I want it all.
All right.
I want it all, you know, and take it all.
All right.
And that's, and I think it's possible,
I do too.
you know. So right on.
I'm Mona Boyd, and I feel that there are problems between the black man and the black woman, and I agree that I think that it is not as bad as what it appears. But I also feel that we take too much of the burden for that problem and say, oh, well, he has this problem, he has that problem. And I think that we have really end up being victimized by taking so much of that. And I would like to see more women like you decide, I'm going to live my life for myself and take an individualistic approach to it. Because we're at the bottom of everything.
Oh, honey, don't.
And I mean, and we can, I personally feel that black women have put everybody before themselves for a long time.
But society doesn't look at us like that.
But
right
they
now.
don't, and it's
They
because
look
we
at
don't
us.
look at us like that either.
Well, you see, I think what has to happen is, as women, we have to start seeing ourselves as the prize.
Exactly.
See, because for too long, it's like, you were right. You know, I mean, we had a meeting, my editors, in the office last week, and they were going on and on because they said, you know, we're getting ready to do another male-female relationships issue. And so they were going on and on and on about, you know, there are 9 women to 1 man, and I don't know where we ever get these statistics from. And finally, you know, the question, which is the one I finally asked myself, is, so what? You only need 1 at a time. Do you know what I mean? But beyond that, I think everything we've been fed makes us feel bad about ourselves. We're prizes. And the more we begin to see that, I think the problems that have been there will not be as much. And we're international women. If there's some problems about how black American men happen to be feeling about us now, there are other men in this world. I mean, there are other men in this world. And once we begin to see that, wow, we can have a good time.
I'm gonna get a lot of phone calls on this one. Okay, another question? Yes, dear. What's your name?
My name is Libby Q.
Libby.
I see this last decade, or this decade right now, and going on to next decade, it's a lot more on the affirmative action and equal employment opportunity. And being minority women, we're sort of a double jeopardy for this kind of thing. How have you, in your leadership role, and you may have come across it or you may not have, how have you answered or will answer charges concerning this, saying that, you know, minorities are put in positions and they're unqualified, but they're there to fill quotas? How would you answer that charge or similar charges?
Because, you know, I just don't feel that, I don't feel that those of us who have gotten our jobs are there simply because of our color or our sex, that we aren't capable of doing the jobs, okay? I also think, you know, if they have to bend over backwards to make up for the hundreds of years when they bent over backwards only for them and themselves, well, that's too damn bad, you know, because that's the only way you can really rectify the past. I don't feel like a twofer. I know the other thing that's very real is there are too many women, okay, women in this country, black women, women of color in this country, who are the sole support of their families, who have to put some money, you know, to buy the clothes, to get the rent, to get the food, to get their kids to school. And, you know, it's not going to help that woman if she's told, well, we can't give you this job because you're going to take it away from a man. She needs that job. And we should be at the point today where it's about you doing what you're capable of doing. And because we've been shut out for so long, they're going to have to give us now some time and space so we can start to catch up. But I'm very firm about this. You know, we don't have any time to be bickering about that kind of silly stuff when we know that when we look at all of our peoples, we still are people who have the furthest to go. People who have, you know, been held down the longest. And I say in these next 20 years, I'm going to use every kind of minority, special, affirmative to see if we can get us further up there. Because we don't have time for this silliness. We really don't. We need it. We're desperate.
That leads me to a question that someone on our staff wanted me to ask about on our way up. I've already included myself without even realizing. On our way up, pulling somebody up with us. What is your philosophy behind that?
I think that's important. I think that, you know, it's about being mentors. I think because we know, because we've been out here for a minute, how hard it is. And I think what we do know, therefore, too, is we need, therefore, to be mentors to the younger girls who are coming behind us, our sisters. I think, too, that, hey, what's the good of me knowing something that I just keep to myself? Do you know, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. My head is, you know, you try and share it. Some people might not want it. People will maybe say, well, I have a better way. But I think that it is very important to share it. And not just about the work thing, but the whole thing. Do you know? Because there's still so few role models out here. I mean, I depend on you all. You know, because there might be information you have that I need. But we just need to spend more time with each other. And in real kinds of coalition and organizations, even if it's just sitting down and having tea once a month, you know, and talking about how our lives have been. We need to make that time. And we need to be there for our younger sisters, because it's going to be rough for them, and it is now, I think.
Another question? Anyone who didn't ask? Okay.
Oh, I'm up again.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I have a question that has perplexed me for a long time, because I look at women, young minority women, younger than myself, and I see them not having the same type of values that I was brought up under. There's no such thing as quote-unquote striving anymore. And it scares me. The sister mentioned about teenage pregnancies. That terrifies me, because you said that it cuts out, that's a non-choice situation. How do we as quote-unquote leaders in the 80s, how do we change what's happening now? How do we instill pride, ambition in young people today? Because I see very few with that, very few.
It's true. I mean, I think we all sit and say times have changed, and you know, there's a part of you that, you know, wishes there were some of the things from the old days that were still going on. Not a lot, but some. The thing I've kind of come to the conclusion personally is that, you know, I have just started doing more community work. Because the only thing I know is, you know, it might be just 2 words that are said to somebody that can be like a ripple in the pond. You don't know kind of where it ends. So I've started, you know, working with women's groups, with teenage girls, and younger than that. And I've just said, you know, 1 day a week, they've got me. because I don't know what else to do. I mean, I really don't. But I figure at least that's something, because I think part of the problem is our communities aren't communities anymore. In integration or whatever they want to call it. Now we have access, so we live all over the place. And as a result, our communities are truly now ghettos. Okay? And you have so many young girls and they're growing up in projects, so you name wherever. And in that environment, they don't see any other options. They really don't. So they're doing what is expected of them within the environments that they're in. And I think the only thing we can do is to go in there and to work where they are. And to say to them, hey, there are some other ways. And pray. And pray. I really mean that. Because you see, I think beyond all else, you see, I mean, we have to find a way to make young girls understand that there really is another road to life than creating life at 13 or 14. I mean, we really do. And I don't know what those answers are, but I figure maybe it just starts by us being there for them. If it's only one day, one evening a week, I don't know what else. Because I'm worried, and I don't know the answer.
You know, it's strange, though. Society really does tell us every day, by all kinds of ways, through television, through newsprint, radio, that we as third world women have really achieved quite a bit. That we are leaders, that we are terribly successful, and that we should be satisfied. Now, keeping that in mind, maybe someone like yourself can help me understand what are the areas that we were supposed to have achieved in so greatly. I'm sort of confused. I see different areas here, and our viewers are able to identify people by areas because as you speak, we identify you with name and where you come from professionally. I still can't see that there's hordes of us out there. So maybe you can tell us, where are we doing so well? What areas? At least, are there statistics that you might have come across that tell us that we're moving higher in one area than another?
No, you know what I always remember though? There's statistics that you'll see that'll say that there are 300% more of us in something than there were before, which means before there were 2, and now that there are, I think so much of it is still based on what I call the American, the I thing. So that they'll say, well, look at you. You've done so much. Therefore, look how wonderful it must be for your people. You know, because it's still about this one, as if one person made it all right for all the others who are. I think all of us would agree. You know, like, what's good of it, us doing quote unquote well, if the majority of our people aren't? You know, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get worried about the fact that, like, you know, it's like they let a couple through the eye of the needle and then they close down the chute. You know, it's like many of us, you know, got through because of the struggle, you know, of people for equality 10, 15 years ago. But we know, too, that, you know, just as they'll let some through, they now have a new thing which they call the underclass that holds, you know, hundreds of thousands of people who are never supposed to have any chance for bettering their lives. So we haven't gotten anywhere. I mean, it's like, you know, what is that saying? How do I rule the world? How does I win the world if only I survive and all else is gone? Is there something like that? But you know what I mean. It doesn't matter.
It will be now. Cynthia.
In light of what you're saying about women and their successes, what do you think of we talked about the 70s as being the women's generation or era. I see white women continuing to be successful in getting government positions and getting heads of company positions or corporation positions. I don't see very many minority women moving into these ranks. Do you think it's because we have not participated fully in the women's movement?
No, I think it's because we're not white women. I think that we still need to participate more fully in the women's movement. But I don't want us to be, that's not true. I don't even mean it that way. I think that we need to dialogue more about making a women's movement that is more responsive to what I call real kinds of grassroots needs. I think that, you know, it's like the minority women's plank at the women's conference in Houston, for example. That was the most real one, as far as I was concerned, in the whole group. but nothing's happened. You know what I mean? Nothing has happened. I think that we have not, speaking about first women, we have only now just begun to build the kinds of coalitions that we need to. Because when we've all been separate entities, and as a result, they can ignore us all. It's going to be only when women of color in this society come together and build coalitions that we're going to make changes. I really, otherwise they're only going to take care of white women. Who else do they have to take care of? And I don't really know if for us it's about being the president of the corporation or getting the government appointment, if that's really what our goals are. I think we really maybe have some other goals that we're looking for too, but we haven't talked enough about them. We really haven't dialogued enough.
I've thought about this quite a bit, and I feel that black women need to become very political, hard-line political, being able to deliver the vote. And I think that once we get to that point, then we'll be able to affect some change in this society. Other than that, I think that it's going to be a long, hard struggle, too long and too hard. And we have the people that can do it, but it's that sacrifice that we're going to have to make, I think.
Do you believe that it is important for us to align ourselves with white women in our society? Is that imperative?
No. I think this sounds strange. I think it's much more imperative that we align ourselves with other first women. I really do.
Why?
Because we spend too much time worrying about white people. It sounds really bizarre. In part, because a lot of the changes that are going to happen in this country are going to be as much, because of what is happening in other parts of this world. The Ayatollah has kind of proven that in a strange way. But what happens in China and in Africa and, in South America is going to affect this country. And it's going to affect change in this country. And that's why I'm much more positive that we have to get closer to other first peoples, first here and then internationally, because it's going to have a lot to do with what's going to happen in America. White people are going to be a lot less important by the end of this century than we can ever imagine, than they even think themselves. Because the balance of powers is shifting in this world. The white Anglo-Saxon Protestant mystique is going to be dead. I really believe that. I'm not saying we're still not going to have the vestiges, but it can't hold on. What is the whole rise of Africa? What is China about? It's certainly not about this same stuff, about Back Bay Boston and Teddy Kennedy. It's not real anymore. And I think what we have to do is begin to see ourselves as international people and begin to make the alliances and the contacts that speak to that.
I'm curious about how many, I think of the 16 of you that are sitting there, agree with that. Let me just hear some applause. How many of you disagree with that? Okay, that's clear. Question. Okay.
I agree with her 100%. My question to you is, right now you're directing your energy and focus on the printed media. What role and responsibility do you think TV and radio has in terms of affecting change and raising consciousness?
Oh, wow.
Right now we're sitting in a studio.
Yes.
What kind of impact do you think this show is having right now?
Oh, I'm sure it's having great impact. This one, anyway, tonight's.
You see, I just think we've been too passive about, let's say, what's on television. Because I think television is so powerful. The thing that I think we've been too passive about is because we haven't raised any hell about all the stuff that's really wrong. We'll complain to each other, but we don't write the letters. And we don't write to the sponsors and say, I'm tired of this stuff. I'm tired of seeing women still in, Charlie's Angels get-ups. I'm tired of the fact that we never see ourselves on television. Do you know what I mean? If they put someone Oriental, someone Asian on something, it's usually because she's doing a Susie Wong still. It's true. We're all done up as stereotypes on television. And we've got to, I think we really just have to become more vocal and much, and more militant about, because television's powerful. I think, but all of media suffers from the same problems. And that is, it's so much easier dealing in stereotypes than trying to break through to unknown territory.
So,
Okay.
so where can we begin to implement the change? I mean,
I'm
because
gonna
we're not
have
in positions of power
We've,
in the media.
we've totally run out of time on a very powerful question. But I'm going to have to thank all of you very much for coming. It's been a very powerful program, that I'm sure. And for those of you who agree or disagree, please write us and let us know. You write to Say Brother, WGBH-TV, 125 Western Avenue, Allston, Mass. 02134. Thank you for watching Say Brother. I hope you did enjoy the program. Marcia Ann Gillespie, it was
Thank you
a pleasure
so much.
having you here.
I enjoyed.
Thank you, and good night.